Good morning and welcome. This is Megan Mansfield from Accordant Company. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar from SwizzNet titled Introducing SwizzStack Solving Critical IT Challenges for Your Business. SwizzNet has been a valued partner to Accordant for many years now, and we are always happy to connect our clients with SwizzNet and their products. Our presenters today are Wes Stillman, Chief Innovation Officer at SwizzNet, and Sam Schumacher, Product Manager at SwizzNet. Before we get started, I want to address a few housekeeping items. Everyone is muted for a clean listening experience. If you have any questions, please type them into the questions box. We will collect the questions and address them at the end of the session. For the best viewing experience, please maximize your screen. Today's webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be provided via email. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Wes and Sam.
Thank you so much, Megan. We're excited to be here and to be talking a little about the security journey that we're seeing organizations just like yours going through. And so to lead us off, we're going to talk a little about that evolution. Wes?
Yeah, good morning. Thanks, Sam. Thank you, everybody, for spending a few minutes with us today. Just to kind of, as Sam said, kind of set the stage for us. You know, back in the day, everything we had was on-prem and, you know, it was secured within your four walls. Software as a service is really driving a lot of change for many of us today. And it has presented new risk around accessing data and applications and trying to protect that. Digital transformation and global events, you know, have really forced more adoption of hybrid and remote workforce around really all businesses today. So really the problem becomes identity and managing access to what it is you use to run your business, all of your applications and data. That threat perimeter has grown exponentially over the last few years, again, mainly because of software and the way that we run our software and remote workforces. IT management has to become much more expensive and confusing, and a lot of tools involved trying to make things happen. Endpoint protection, whether it's your phones or your PCs themselves, endpoint protection becomes essential. Breaches are just absolutely unavoidable, but by expanding and using all of the end devices that are out there today, it really has expanded the problem. So end device management is terribly important. In terms of risk, it's there every day in your business, right? From file storage all the way to data and everything in between. Risk may come from inside your company or attacks against your company, but it may also come from your clients and or trying to come through your company to attack your clients, or vice versa. It may be coming from clients trying to attack your firm as well. Construction companies, especially with respect to cybersecurity, have in the past been slow to adopt new technology, and rightfully so. In other words, if it's not broken, why do we have to fix it? So that inertia and a typical mobile workforce really makes construction a keen target for bad actors out there. I don't think we have to go through a lot of these best practices, but let me just spend a few minutes on a couple of these areas. Your file storage in particular, you know, access rules around who can access what really is important, as well as your offsite backups, and being able to test those backups is a key risk in most companies today. Password storage, we see an awful lot of people still using, you know, sticky notes, right, to write down passwords on. Things like being able to use password vaults, LastPass, OnePass, some of those types of things are absolutely necessary, and really make it very easy to be able to allow employees and different members of your team to access different software and different data without having to remember a lot of passwords. We also strongly recommend any of those password vaults, and I know they've been in the news lately. LastPass, for example, they're great targets for hackers. But the bottom line is every single one of those hacks that I've been aware of is, yes, maybe they've been able to break through the perimeters, but the passwords themselves are encrypted, and these companies don't hold the keys to that encryption, which means your passwords are safe. If you're worried about it, make sure you turn on, your multi-factor authentication to them.
And Wes, what is the key? What is the key to those encrypted passwords?
Actually, it's your master password. So when you log in to say LastPass, it will ask you for your master key. That's your private key, and that's what unlocks the password vault. So being able to change that password, if you're worried about it, is the best way to protect all of your passwords in that vault. Good question, Sam. Communication, we put that up there as a risk mainly because it's really important for everyone in the organization to understand what the risks are out there and how to best protect not only themselves, but the company and your clients, right? If a great example of that, a bank will send you communication quite often that says, you don't need to, for example, or asking for your credentials through an email. That type of communication really does help educate not only your clients, but internally as well. Email, I'm sure everyone on the call has heard or read about it over the last few years. Email is the #1 attack vector, if you will, for phishing and hacking itself, social engineering. So we suggest that you encrypt your email, right? Communications with your clients, define your policies about what you will and won't accept via email. Quite often we hear, for example, on our accounting side, accountants unwilling to accept email from clients with private information in it. So private information should never, ever be sent through email. That includes things like credit cards, account numbers, that type of thing. Portals and client communication tools like Licio and Smart Vault are great examples that are alternatives to emails and for communicating and transferring documents back and forth. Your internal networks, I think we all have been around long enough that we know we need firewalls and protect that, what's inside our offices today from that. I will tell you most of the attacks today are not coming through, attacks in a firewall. They're coming through social media. But this is where we need to realize that our networks are no longer just in our office, right? We're well beyond the office. And so you need to think of your network as extending to your mobile devices, maybe in somebody's truck or at home. And what that means is your company network is really dramatically expanded. And so therefore we need to protect access to the data. VPNs, in-device management, and tools on those end devices are absolutely necessary today. And the idea of having multi-factor authentication everywhere you go is a big help.
And I think it's probably safe to say that in construction, we've seen those hybrid and distributed workforces even before some of our other professional services industries, just because of the nature of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to allow your team to actually do the work they need to do in the field, but at the same time protect access to all of the company data and client data is critical. So protecting those end devices is really where it has to be. I think data in and of itself, right, is critical. Role-based, meaning on an individual basis, who has access to what in terms of data and applications needs to be considered. Things like contractors, short-term employees, clients reviewing documentation, and the process needs to be put in place that as you have this very dynamic workforce, making sure that once you've given access to somebody, if they are no longer, there, like a contractor or a short-term employee, that access needs to be revoked in a timely manner. It's interesting. We had a few clients that was holding old client information, right? Clients that were no longer there, offboarded, not even part of your revenue stream today. But they allowed everyone in the firm to have access to it, and as a result, it allowed, through that held data, it presented a risk and, in essence, a breach in an ex-client's environment. So being able to protect that information, get rid of it when you don't need it, and or archive it and encrypt it is critical thinking around how you think about data today. So it's not just access to it, but what do I do with it when I no longer need it?
Yeah, and I think that what I've seen is that, Accordant does a great job with their clients of setting up permissions within the Sage software for sure. But then there's things outside of that reach when it comes to, just file repositories, might be OneDrive or Dropbox or, Google Docs. And that's where you're talking about role-based access and making sure that people have access to what they need and not the whole world, just to reduce the risk.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Sam. Yeah, that's perfect. Within the application, I think it's pretty well controlled and managed.
Yeah.
It's all the ancillary type data and documents and files that maybe are stored outside of those systems that really need some attention.
For sure, and I think that's a great segue to this.
Yeah, clearly you can see from the chart, construction industry as a whole is really a top target of cybercrime. And while maybe inherently we all kind of see that, but we need to ask the question, why is that, right? Why? I mean, you would think maybe finance would be way up there. The business model is really dependent on on-time delivery of your services and products. Ransomware disrupts that timeline. And disruption to your schedule is really the Achilles heel of the industry, right? It's going to disrupt, higher profitability, payouts, those facts which make, construction an appealing target is why we're bringing this up today. In order to really be successful and profitable, security has to be a part of this conversation to ensure that disruption doesn't happen, or at least minimize the risk and possibility of that as much as possible. I'll pause right here. I don't think that any system out there can be 100% in stopping some kind of ransomware. There's too many humans involved, and social engineering is just a fact that we have to deal with today.
Mm-hmm.
When we speak with your peers in the industry daily, right, and often they talk about the struggle keeping up with technology and security, and we're frequently asked how we can help, right? We believe that we provide, think of it as, if you will, an easy button, right, to three of the most fundamental and foundational elements of securing your business. And those would be, in-device protection itself, EDR, employee training, and office and backups, right, of your core core applications and data. The construction business itself could be enticing to cyber racketeers because of that core process that steers the industry. The reputation of firms in your industry is largely built upon great on-time service and a great product, which is at risk during any kind of delays caused by ransomware attacks. Imagine not being able to access any of your files all of a sudden. A cybersecurity expert at NordLocker, an encrypted cloud service provider, states this factor together with the industry's razor-thin profit margin provides the ransomware groups with conditions that make a payout more likely, right? So what we hear and what we're seeing is that you really don't have a choice. You need to pay to get your data back more quickly. So what we want to do is protect you from having that situation to begin with. Sam, anything you'd like to add there?
No, I think that's perfect because I mean, I think about a project, you know, as we look to have a garage put up, I'm thinking about the drawings and the estimate and the, you know, the contract and everything that goes along with getting that done. You know, thinking about how crippling that would be if it were to get encrypted. I think that really resonates with the whole message of, you know, securing access, managing it by identity, but you know, first and foremost, protecting endpoints, educating staff, and having reliable backups of your data.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. Oftentimes when I talk to people about cybersecurity, Sam, it's really about protecting data and private information, but this really highlights the fact that this is really about ensuring your business and protecting your revenue streams. And that's really what cybersecurity is really about, right? You want to protect your business from those disruptions.
Yeah, business continuity. I think you're on it.
Guys, just to throw out a couple of things. First of all, ransomware is nothing more than a program, right? It's a program that sits in your computers. And it's interesting, IBM came out, I don't know, last year or so, and they said on average, ransomware the program itself sits within your environment for well over 200 days.
How scary is that?
It's very scary. And you know, the first question is, well, why, right? What's it doing in there? And what it's doing is learning and discovering your processes, what your backups are, what kind of technology you have and protections you have in place, and how to get around those things. So on average, in about 5 months to recover from a discovered, you know, breach. 5 months. That's 5 months of disruption.
So if we take that 200 or so days plus the 5 months, we're talking about a whole year from the point that the breach happens, 7 months before we find it on average, and then another 5 months to recover.
Yeah, I'd be willing, most of us, if it hasn't happened to us, you know, personally in our given business, we know of somebody who it has happened to.
Yeah.
I hate this cliche saying, but it's true. It's really not a matter of if, but when, as prolific as ransomware and these attacks have become. One thing I might mention here is that it has become a business, right? A billion-dollar business. In fact, one of the reasons that it's getting worse, just so everyone understands, is that because ransomware and these malware attacks, they are being packaged and sold on the internet and making it easier for lower skilled people to be able to use the software to attack. So you don't even have to be an expert hacker anymore. You can buy the software and attack just about anybody you want to. So the big question is, how would you even know if you've been attacked? So Sam, you want to go ahead and flip over?
Yeah, yep. So, one of the things that you've been talking about this morning is, and driving home the point of, is that it's not necessarily all about firewalls and networks anymore. The bad actors have really turned to social engineering as their primary method of breaching systems, because ultimately it's faster and cheaper to hack a human than to hack a network. So what is social engineering? Well, to put it simply, it's the manipulation of human behavior. It's taking advantage of psychology. And so, one thing that we like to say is, if it feels fishy, it probably is. I mean, you guys are great at identifying some of those. We all know the Nigerian prince doesn't really want to give us $1 million for helping him send a letter, right? But some of those attacks are becoming much more sophisticated. Some of the attacks that we see, most of them come through email. On the next slide, we'll look at 7 things to watch out for, but quick anecdote. One of our clients, their email was hacked recently. In fact, I see it almost on a daily basis, but in this particular case, we were actually waiting to receive some information from that client. And so we received an email from him requesting that we click a link to view a document, but that's not exactly how we were waiting for that information to come. So one of our teammates forwarded it to him and said, "Hey, it's not our policy to click links, and so if you could send it the way we requested it, that would be great." But she got an auto response almost immediately, and what ultimately had happened was the bad actor had compromised his email, set up a rule to auto delete those responses, and then auto send the next email, which said, "Don't worry, it's safe. Click on it. That's the way you're going to get the information." And of course, we didn't. We picked up the phone and called him. But I think that story, I mean, had she clicked through that link, there's a good chance there would have been a piece of malware or something else put on her computer. And I think that speaks to the really scary statistic that you just talked about, Wes, that it takes an average of 228 days to discover a breach. How long would it have taken us to figure out that her computer had something malicious on it?
Well, in our case, fortunately, not very long, because we have the right technology.
That's right. That's right. Fortunately, all of our devices do have that really sophisticated threat hunting, but it's not the case for every business. But it is one more reason why multi-factor authentication is something we preach about. You have to have multi-factor turned on to absolutely every business application or system that you have it available in. So that'll include your password managers as well as your email. If it's Gmail or if it's Office 365, you've got to turn on multi-factor, because I think had he had multi-factor turned on, they wouldn't have been able to get in there and not only get in to spoof him, but to be able to set up those rules.
And Sam, do you think we know it's possible, right, to be able to capture and stop some of that, but requires a fair level of sophistication and setup, right?
The rules aren't that difficult to set up, right? And like you said, some of the software that can be used to get into those systems has become much easier to use.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Important to know what those are. I know you're going to go through a few of these examples. I think this is really helpful to kind of understand some of the capabilities that these guys are using, attack vectors, if you will, ways of trying to hook you into giving away your credentials, basically.
Yeah, I think one of the most common ones that I see is the spoofing, right? Where it looks like it's coming from someone that you trust. I mean, I get emails from our CEO all of the time. So why would I expect that an email from our CEO is potentially a threat? But it happens. We had one going around the organization just last week, I think, asking for someone to go buy gift cards.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone getting in the car going and buying those gift cards, but I guess it's
Yeah,
possible.
right. No, I mean, heads up, Bob's not going to ask us to go buy gift cards, right? That's
Right.
but yeah, I mean, we see those sorts of things all the time, and there's a ton of great documentation out there, education out there. One of the things that we provide is that cybersecurity awareness training that does teach you some of the key things to look for and the most recent and most prevalent attack methodologies that are out there. But just quickly, I mean, here's 7 things that you should always be looking at when you see emails coming through. You know, checking to make sure that it's a legitimate email address, and understanding what it means if the Gmail is before or after a dot and before the .com. Things like suspicious links. And one of the ways to check for those is to hover over them. You know, is the link the same as what's being displayed in the email? Looking at those sort of generic greetings, looking for those spelling and grammar mistakes. I think we all got wise to that when we had all of those princes out there offering to give us money. The spelling and grammar mistakes were the most prevalent telltales there. I mean, besides the fact that we weren't expecting money from anyone. Those attachments, I've heard it said that the only safe attachment is a .txt file, right? A text file, Wes. Those executables and the HTMLs, those are all badness.
Yeah, all bad. I guess the only safe one is the one you're really expecting, right? And in the format you're expecting it.
Yeah, and preferably one that comes through communication portal, probably.
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to mention here too is we can set up direct email communications with different vendors, right?
Yeah.
So, which automatically encrypts emails and ensures emails are flowing, you know, from point A to point B in an encrypted way, and both of you are expecting those and rejecting anything that isn't coming through that encrypted connection. So that's something else that we may want to bring up as part of our entire security package. But it's
great point.
It isn't just about my point is there's a lot of things that we can do. In fact, Sam, I know you were talking the other day about, you know, a client that was talking about first line of defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to share that or not.
Yeah, I mean, the first line of defense really is our people, and we're definitely going to talk more about that. And I think that's a great segue into another fun little story that I have. I was talking with a client about the importance of that first line of defense people, and she was the controller for a mid-sized construction company, and she was just so proud of her team when she told me that they were cyber aware. She said, I kid you not, she said they forward her every email that they think looks fishy and ask her what to do with it. And so then she investigates every one of those emails and then responds back to them, letting them know whether or not it's safe. And so it's unfathomable to me. I can't imagine how much time she spends serving as like a human spam filter for this team. I think they had 8 or 10 office employees. So thinking about how many fishy looking emails I get a day, even with our spam filtering and all of our great security stuff, there's always going to be little things that sneak through. You know, she's acting as that human spam filter when she could put her team through 45 minutes of cybersecurity awareness training a year and probably cut down on 90% of that information, 90% of those questions that are just disruptions to her when she's got numbers to run, right?
Yeah, incredible. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, and/or a combination of technology with it.
Yeah, most definitely. I did a bad job on this slide, Wes. We've got a bunch of stuff back there, so here we go.
There we go. That looks better. You know, you're talking about phishing attacks, and I think there is a fair amount of confusion out there in the general public about what a phishing attack really means. And really, a phishing attack is all about trying to find a way to access accounts, get into your computer, exploit some vulnerability that may exist. And so most phishing attacks lead to some kind of insertion of malware. And as I said before, malware is really a computer program. It plants code, a program on your machine to extract specific pieces of information, data, things like IDs and passwords. It's a program. It's a program that is designed to do bad things, right? Elicit and or find or gather information about what it is you're doing. But in order for malware, so phishing in and of itself is badness, right? It's irritating. But when it moves from phishingware to that malware, that's where it becomes dangerous. And in order for malware to actually do any kind of damage, the software has to install something in your computer. It has to run a program. It has to do something inside your computer. And like everything else in this world, when you execute things, it will leave a footprint. It will elicit certain behaviors. It can trigger certain things within your computer that gives us a clue, gives us evidence that something bad is going on in your system. Good in-device protection software proactively starts looking for these patterns of behavior that are not normal to how you normally function on your computer. Okay, that's where artificial intelligence begins to come into play, and what we call next-gen antivirus, next-gen protection. So we've moved beyond the idea of looking at signatures for a virus or a file to actually looking at what's going on inside of the computer. And any kind of that evidence of malicious code or activity is immediately identified. We use SentinelOne, which Gartner, the Gartner Group, anybody who follows technology at all knows Gartner Group is kind of the leading voice of technology and where it falls, whether it's leading or behind. But they indicate SentinelOne is a leader, right, in this industry. It's 7x24, what we call threat hunting. Yeah, thank you, Sam. Threat hunting itself. And what that means is it's actually actively looking, right? Just like Sam, in your story where the lady was actively looking at all of that email and code and trying to understand what's going on. It's actively out there looking for suspicious behavior, activity, footprints of things that are out there. And just remember that an attack, right? There is an attack about every 14 seconds in this country, right? So again, it's not a matter of if, but when this is actually going to happen. I think good security requires a healthy investment to really be effective, right? It is important to partner with firms like Advisory that have made those investments for our clients. And being able to do that means we can purchase this great technology in bulk, keeping the cost down, right, and affordable for our customers so that you can utilize this critical technology itself. I think understanding your environment and your threat risk that are out there in the perimeter itself, it's absolutely critical, but we have to understand that the technology that we're using today is not old school. It's great new technology to combat the new, threats that are out there today. Sam, you and I were talking the other day, and there's no doubt about it. Artificial intelligence is the key to a lot of this great technology that helps us be proactive in this threat hunting. But the fact is, the bad actors also have access to artificial intelligence. So it's a constant battle to try to stay ahead of it. No doubt about that.
And I think that's where tools like SentinelOne and CrowdStrike, being cloud native and having these great big libraries of threats. You know, when I first started learning about these next-gen AVs, and next-gen AV, by the way, that's probably a term that's familiar to most of the people on this call, at least anyone that's reviewed a recent business liability or cybersecurity insurance policy, right? Because that's in the last 12 or 18 months, that started cropping up as a requirement. Next-gen AV, next-gen AV. But what is it? I was shocked to understand that the old antivirus that I had on my computer 10 years ago wasn't looking for a threat. It was waiting for a threat to be planted and come to maturity, right? It was there. And then it was like, oh yeah, by the way, this thing is there, so you're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the new technology today tries to recognize it and shut it down, right? Quarantine it, if you will, keep it from doing any kind of damage. And in fact, most of the technology we use today can even go as far as shutting down a box if it has to, just to prevent anything bad from happening. It's not 100%, right, Sam? There is no technology out there. We are right. With each new threat, we are learning and protecting against it, but that's not stopping somebody from coming up with a new attack vector or a new way of attacking the system itself. So we're always learning and trying to prevent it. So if it does happen, what does that mean? It means that our technology and the great technology that's there today, we can immediately roll back to a state that is not infected, right? One-click remediation and rollback can be utilized. That's what is really key to being able to reduce the amount of time that an attack or an actual breach might impact a company.
Yeah, and that was one of the primary reasons we ended up going with SentinelOne as our solution for these endpoints. It was such a great value add, and knowing that in that worst case scenario, we'd have a button to press that would be as minimally invasive and reduce that time to recover.
Yeah, I don't know about our audience today, but typically someone within an organization typically gets to draw the short straw. I don't know if everyone stands around and actually draws straws anymore, but somebody gets the lucky designation as the IT person in an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And today it is so sophisticated and really complicated. It's great to have somebody within the organization that is somewhat technology savvy, but it really does take an entire company to understand the technology and get it implemented and use it. This idea of digital cloud transformation and the fact that our companies, if not already, will be in the future forced to use cloud-based, SaaS-based, software as a service-based technology for their applications. And it further complicates, the IT infrastructure and cybersecurity needs that go with all of that. And it evolves dramatically beyond just what an individual, somebody in-house, even if they have an IT background, can possibly deal with. I think the dependency on technology by remote workers will continue to increase, and the complexity of those business requirements. And Sam, you mentioned insurance requirements. quite often today, many of the liability insurance even is requiring some sort of questions around cybersecurity, if not absolutely the cybersecurity components of it. And they're not simple, right? And I think the last one Bob and I looked at, I think was somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 pages of questions. So it can get very complex. Not that you'd have to do that with a construction firm, but
Sure.
Certainly the insurance companies are very interested in what you're doing and how you're protecting.
You're
because
right.
it is.
And it's going far beyond now. To your point, it's going beyond, do you have antivirus? Are you using multi-factor authentication? And are you training your employees? It's starting to extend way beyond that.
So Sam, where do we start?
Well, we protect the assets. That's that endpoint protection we've been talking about, that next gen AV, and we educate staff, which ultimately they're our first line of defense. Our teams are getting those emails and knowing that they've been trained and knowing that they know how to spot potentially malicious email or attachment is really key to limiting our exposure to risk. So, you mentioned at the start of the call this morning that we talk with construction firms daily, and we do. And over time, our clients that have been with us, that have been hosting their Sage environments with us, have started to say, hey, my insurance is starting to require these extra things. What else can you do for us? Because I think the reality is that we often end up sourcing solutions from multiple locations, and we end up having some overlap. The solutions that we've brought start with some really simple security packages, and I call them simple. They're using really sophisticated technology, but the three packages that we've put together is the security essentials. And we think that that's essential for every business, protecting the endpoint. So that's where it starts. And then we've got our security assure package, which is bringing some assurance to the business and making sure that not only are those endpoints protected, but teams are cybersecurity aware. And what's cool about the tool that we use for that know before cybersecurity awareness training and testing is that we can auto enroll staff in remediated training if they fail one of these simulated attacks that we have scheduled to go out. So we set up these simulations with construction specific real world examples of phishing and social engineering attacks. And if they fall victim to one of those, then it'll automatically put them into some remedial training so that they can get a refresher and say, oh yeah, I'm not going to click on that again. And then that security elite package, we take it a step farther and provide that advanced backup and recovery assistance for Office 365 most commonly, but we still have some folks out there on the G Suite too, and we can also provide the advanced recovery solution for that. And that becomes really important if there is an encryption event through some sort of a ransomware attack, or if someone accidentally deletes a folder out of OneDrive or something like that, we can go back and recover it. And so while this isn't the end all be all to securing your organization, it's really sort of a starting place. So if something like this isn't in place, we definitely recommend putting it in place, whether it's through us or through someone else.
Sam, I think
yeah.
if you don't mind, real quick, can you take a step back on that previous slide? I've been a little bit remiss. I mentioned EDR a couple of times, and I don't think I really fully explained what EDR is. What does it stand for, Sam?
Endpoint detection and response.
And so I think our packages here really begin to address that endpoint detection and response capabilities. Is that right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. We mentioned in device a couple of times, and this solution, whether it's you use our essentials all the way to the elite, these are very sophisticated tool sets that address all the things we've been talking about. So very simplified initial step that really needs to be taken. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disrupt your flow there.
No, I'm glad that we came back, because there was actually a question about how the pricing model is set up, and so it's per employee is how that's set up. The other thing that we have, so what we've found is that a lot of our clients either have in-house IT, or they might have outsourced IT through some managed service provider. But sometimes, back to your short straw story, Wes, when we first start a business, someone draws the short straw, and they have to be that person that everyone goes to for their IT questions. They're the ones that ultimately are responsible for making technology decisions and getting things implemented. But over time, businesses start to grow, and that's a really great thing, but it presents a new challenge for that person wearing that IT hat, which is, the growing complexity of the IT footprint and the growing complexity of cybersecurity threats, and knowing what to do and when, and what tools to put in place to best protect their business. And so that's why we also are delivering that managed service. And so for folks that need more than just some endpoint protection and employee training and maybe an advanced recovery solution for their business documents, we can also extend further into their business and provide them not only with that hosted infrastructure, hosting the Sage suite of applications and other third parties that they might be using, and not only supporting that environment, but supporting their entire office, bringing that same obsessive support that we pride ourselves on for our hosting right down into their printers and Wi-Fi, and making sure that we're ensuring the best business continuity that we can, and bringing an integrated solution where appropriate and where possible, and providing that cybersecurity layer through continuous threat hunting, not only on the hosted infrastructure, but on the endpoints, as well as the awareness training and testing. Our solution's ever evolving. It has to, as the world evolves and technology around it evolves. So the support and security, disaster recovery, and so as we evolve, we're really listening to our clients and listening to their needs, and putting ourselves forward as one that can solve for a lot of those technology challenges and cybersecurity threats. So
I will just say that ever evolving, old way, new way, we've really made a tremendous investment in technology and resources and expertise over the last several years as a company, and continue to grow that capability as we move forward.
Yeah, not just tools though, right, Wes? In people, right? We've made some really amazing hires on our security team, and so what we're trying to do, and I think what we're doing a pretty good job of, is helping people go from the old way, which is this disparate set of tools and providers, and providing a more holistic whole business solution that speaks to our mission, which really is to deliver secure world-class technology solutions, both with urgency and expertise.
Absolutely.
So with that, I think if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take them here. And certainly if you'd like to have a conversation and just walk us through any of your challenges, or walk us through what your needs are, even if you're happy with what you have and you just want to learn more about what we're doing, please feel free to reach out to us. It looks like we're about 10 minutes ahead of schedule. So Wes, unless you have any closing remarks, we'll maybe let folks have a couple minutes back to refill their coffee before their next meetings start up.
No, not really. I think you did a great job of explaining what we have and the capabilities that are there. The only closing comment I would have is advisory is growing, and with that growth comes the ability to make these investments in technology and bring them to the table at a reasonable cost. So very happy to be a part of it.
Thanks,
Well,
Wes.
this was a great presentation. Thank you so much, Sam and Wes. I'm going to unmute the participants, and if there's any questions, maybe they can, if anybody has any questions, they can certainly reach out, or any questions in the chat. No?
It looks like
No?
we
So
might have done too good of a job explaining things as we went.
we like it. We like it. It was great. Great presentation.
Thanks.
So if there are no questions, we will conclude the webinar, and thank you again for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thanks
Thank you.
for having us, Megan.